I was not tough at all. I did not fit into my family. I was like young Sheldon in the hood, just like, what is happening? I'll never forget when I was 5 years old, a guy pulls up in a brand new car in front of our apartment, and I recognized him. It was a guy my mom had married months earlier who left us out of the blue. We had no idea where he was. And I yelled inside, Mommy, Mommy, one of my dads is here.
Oh.
And she was smoking a cigarette, doing the dishes, and she got this look on her face. She ran to the baseball bat, ran out, cigarette still in her mouth. He's sitting in the car, shatters his front windshield, takes out his headlights, knocks off his side mirrors, and goes, "Get out. I'm just a girl. Come on." He made the mistake getting out, and she beat him bloody. He eventually got back in the car, drove off, and I'll never forget this. She's walking back up. So I'm thinking three things. One is I will never disobey my mom again. What in the world is happening? Number two is, how did the cigarette stay in her mouth the whole time?
Natural question.
Good. And then number three was, why is my mom so angry? She'd been burned by several men. She had a shame-fueled rage.
Yeah.
And when she looked at me, she often burst into tears because she felt so guilty for almost aborting me. And then a hillbilly preacher, nicknamed Yankee, planted a church in the suburbs of Denver, and on a dare, went to my Uncle Jack's house. My Uncle Jack was the toughest one of my uncles. Literally looks like the Wolverine. He went to jail for choking two cops unconscious at the same time. He was a very dangerous man. In and out of jail his whole adult life. This hillbilly preacher knocked on his door. Jack came to the door, no shirt on, rippling with muscles. 2 beer cans, one for drinking beer, one for spit and chew. He talked like this, "What do you want?" And he said, I'm here on a dare from Bob Daly to tell you about Jesus. He goes, "Well, I don't know Jesus. I know Bob will give you 5 minutes." And he explained the gospel to my Uncle Jack. My Uncle Jack had never heard that Jesus came to die for sinners. That when Jesus died on the cross, he paid the price for all of sin. And that salvation was not by being good. It was by faith in Christ. And Yankee said, "Does that make sense?" And my Uncle Jack goes, "Hell yeah." That was a sinner's prayer, was hell yeah. He trusted in Jesus. He brought 250 people out to Yankee's church in 1 month. Wow. Boom, 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 boom. My whole family radically, over the course of a couple of years, radically transformed.
You're listening to Java with Jen, and I'm your host, Jenilee Samuel. On this show, I bring the simplicity of hearing God's voice into everyday life in a no-nonsense, authentic, and super practical way. With coffee in hand and real life in our faces, let's do this. Hey everybody, thanks so much for coming back to another episode here at Java with Jen. First, I wanted to read a couple of podcast reviews that came in recently, which touched my heart. So this first one is from Chelsea Scott 711, and she said, episode 262 brought a glimmer of light and insightfulness into what has been such a dark week with the murder of Charlie Kirk, among other awful tragedies that have taken place. I needed to hear this perspective. The prophetic word was so powerful, actual chills. Thank you so much for sharing your heart, spur of the moment, and putting this episode out. What a much needed blessing indeed. Thank you so much, Chelsea, for sharing that, because, that episode was a little tricky to get out, and I'm glad that it touched you. Another one is from Patty Pyle, and she says, Jenilee just sparkles. In her uplifting podcast, Java with Jen, Jenilee sparkles with warmth and joy. She engages right from the start. Her topics are always relevant and full of practical wisdom. Every episode offers fresh insights and is both encouraging and fun, a real boost for spiritual growth. And Jen herself is wonderfully real and accessible. This is a jewel of a podcast. So Patty, thank you for taking the time to do that. For those of you guys who are listening, if you haven't reviewed the show, I would love for you to do that. And if you do, I will read your review in an episode as well. So thank you, ladies. And I want to get into this content because Greg Stier is here. And he has witnessed the gospel radically transform his tough inner city family before he reached his teenage years, sparking his passion for evangelism. In 91, as a young church planter, he founded Dare to Share to equip teens to reach their peers with the gospel. Since then, Dare to Share has trained and mobilized millions of leaders across the U.S. and around the world to share the good news of Jesus. So, Greg, thanks so much for being here and for doing what you do.
Yeah, thanks for doing what you do. Glad to be a part of your show. And I feel really old knowing that you knew about Dare to Share as a teenager. I'm like, whoa.
Well, I feel really old that I have four teenagers, so
There
we're
you
both
go.
there.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, so why don't you share a little bit? I'm sure you are seeing this new move, this new wave. God's Spirit is moving, and they say Gen Z is more hungry for the gospel than any generation in quite a while. So tell us what you're seeing there.
Well, I was raised in an inner city family by a single mom.
Mm.
My family was known in North Denver. We were raised in the highest crime rate area. My family had something to do with that crime rate. My family, a
Oh,
lot of them were criminals in and out of jail. Three of my
wow.
uncles were competitive bodybuilders. The fourth one was a bouncer at the toughest bar in the city. The fifth one was a boxer and judo champion. And my mom was the only girl in the group, and they were all afraid of her. She was like the woman at the well with a baseball bat. She was a tough, tough lady. My family was very violent. I never knew my biological father. I was a result. She went to a party, they partied. She got pregnant. She drove from Denver to Boston to have an illegal abortion. My uncle Tommy, who had recently come to Christ, talked her out of it in Boston. She came back. She would look at me oftentimes and just burst into tears. So my family was a mess.
Wow.
It was a mess. It was a violent mess. And
Mm.
I was not tough at all. I did not fit into my family. I was like young Sheldon in the hood, just like, what is happening? And I'll never forget when I was 5 years old, a guy pulls up in a brand new car in front of our apartment, and I recognized him. It was a guy my mom had married months earlier who left us out of the
Mm.
blue. We had no idea where he was. And I yelled inside, Mommy, Mommy, one of my dads is here.
Oh,
And she was smoking a cigarette, doing the dishes, and she got this look on her face.
oh no.
She ran to the baseball bat, ran out, cigarette still in her mouth. He's sitting in the car, shatters his front windshield, takes out his headlights, knocks off his side mirrors, and goes, Get out. I'm just a girl. Come on. Well, she's got five bodybuilding street thug brothers that were all afraid of her. He made the mistake getting out, and she beat him bloody. He eventually got back in the car, drove off, and I'll never forget this. You have those memories that are
Yeah.
seared into your soul. She's walking back up. I'm thinking three questions. I'm thinking three things. One is I will never disobey my mom again.
Yeah. Yeah.
What in the world is happening? Number two is how did the cigarette stay in her mouth the whole time?
Natural
Pretty
question.
good. And then number three was why is my mom so angry?
Wow.
And I found out over the course of time she'd been burned by several men.
Mm.
She had a shame-fueled rage.
Yeah.
And when she looked at me, she often burst into tears because she
Mm.
felt so guilty for almost aborting me. And then a hillbilly preacher, nicknamed Yankee, planted a church in the suburbs of Denver and on a dare went to my Uncle Jack's house. My Uncle Jack was the toughest one of my uncles. Literally looks like the Wolverine.
Oh, wow.
He went to jail for choking two cops unconscious at the same time. He was a very
Oh.
dangerous man, in and out of jail his whole adult life. This hillbilly preacher knocked on his door. Jack came to the door, no shirt on, just, rippling with muscles. Two beer cans, one for drinking beer, one for spit and chew. He talked like this. What do you want? Yankee said, I'm here on a dare from Bob Daly to tell you about Jesus. He goes, Well, I don't know Jesus. I know Bob will give you 5 minutes. And he
Mhm.
explained the gospel to my Uncle Jack. My Uncle Jack had never heard that Jesus came to die for sinners.
Mm.
That when Jesus died on the cross, he paid the price for all of his sin. And that salvation was not by being good, it was by faith in Christ.
Mm.
And Yankee said, Does that make sense? And my Uncle Jack goes, Hell yeah. That was a sinner's prayer, was hell yeah. He trusted in Jesus. He brought 250 people out to Yankees church in 1 month. Boom,
Wow.
boom, boom, boom. My whole family radically, over the course of a couple of years, radically transformed.
Wow.
And so I got involved with Yankees youth ministry. He had 800 teenagers, 300 adults in his church.
Oh, wow.
Fastest way to reach a city was through the youth. So I was trained, equipped, and mobilized. I was privileged to lead my own mom to Christ at the age of 15 and disciple.
Wow.
So that's why I'm passionate about teenagers and the power of the gospel and the potential of teenagers.
Wow. So that immediately makes me think, who was praying for your family?
Okay, that is a great question
Yeah.
because I tell this story. I've been telling this story for years, right? And I'll never forget, like 25 years ago, my grandma set me down.
Uh-huh.
My grandparents were Baptist, right? She goes, I love it when you tell the story of Yankee. I love it when you tell the story of the transformation of all my boys and my daughter, your mom.
Hmm.
She goes, but you need to realize that your grandma prayed every day for her kids to
Wow.
come to Christ.
Hmm.
God sent Yankee as an answer to your grandma's prayers. So
I love
remember,
it.
and I did because my grandma carried a 357 Magnum in her purse. She did. It was like gum and a gun. I'm like, my grandma, what are you doing?
She's a
Um,
real grandma.
that kind of Baptist. But
Wow.
yeah, my grandma was praying. So
That's
yeah,
incredible. It kind of sounds like you grew up with the mafia, is what it sounds like.
the mafia in Denver was called the Smaldones. The mafia nicknamed my uncles the Crazy Brothers.
Are you
My,
serious?
my family was not organized crime; they were disorganized crime. They just wanted to fight.
Oh
And
my gosh.
all this, just so you know, I don't know if you know this, but I wrote a book called Unlikely Fighter
Okay.
that tells it's a memoir, and it's 22 chapters. The first 21 happened before I turned 16 years of age. So it's really
Hmm.
about growing up in this mafia-like family
Hmm.
that was transformed by the power of the gospel. And
Mm.
yeah, it was a hard book to write because I would call my wife and I would say, "Why am I crying?"
It's
Because I'm a
therapy.
crier. Yeah, it's therapy.
Oh
Totally.
my gosh. Okay, so I called that out, that who was praying for your family, because it's obvious when the whole family gets saved like that, somebody is calling on heaven to pray and intervene. And I highlight that because those who are listening, many of you have been praying for families for a long time. And if you've been discouraged about people who have not come to know the Lord yet, his story should encourage you, because those mountains may look big, but it only takes a mustard seed of faith. Okay, so Greg, what drew you specifically to focus on evangelism with the next generation? Like what was the birthplace of Dare to Share specifically?
Well, I think, being involved with Yankees youth ministry, where we were mobilized with and for the gospel as teenagers, I mean, I saw it. When I got out and went to another youth group to become a youth leader, I was like, what? This is lame. This is just games and, a short lesson and pizza and a retreat every year. Whoopity do. These kids need a mission, right? They need
Yeah.
a vision. And so I think being raised in this, the other thing, I planted a church in 1989 and I started Dare to Share kind of on the side. And I thought, well, I'll just kind of run this as a side gig, and
Hmm.
pastor. And then April 20th, 1999, the Columbine High School shooting took place.
I remember.
And my wife's was a public school teacher for 30 years in the same district as Columbine High School.
Oh, wow.
I knew a lot of the kids. It's not too far away from where we're at right now.
Mm.
And God shook, just like with the Charlie Kirk shooting in
Mhm.
99, that's what shook America.
Yeah, it did.
And it shook me. And I resigned from the church to do Dare to Share full time. And I just believe in the power of the gospel, the
Mm.
potential of young people.
Yeah.
Teens come to Christ quicker. 80% of those that come to Christ do it by the time they're 18. They
Hmm.
they can spread the gospel farther and faster,
Mm.
via social media as well as face to face.
It's true.
And we wait. I think a lot of pastors wait. They don't really invest in the next generation because they don't tithe, right?
Mm.
But our currency in ministry is not money. Our currency is souls.
Yeah.
And if I was a business person and I knew 80% of a certain constituency or demographic would be most likely to buy my product,
Yeah.
I would invest 100% of my marketing into that.
Hmm.
So I really challenge pastors, and parents, don't overlook the young. Don't wait to mobilize them till they graduate.
Yeah.
Mobilize them now. Now.
Yes.
And two things will happen. One, the kingdom of God will go forth. Two, they will own their faith like never before.
100%. And if you can do it when they're at that age, it's a trajectory that typically sticks around for a lifetime.
That's it. That's what we're seeing. And it's interesting that you say that because I think so many times we're talking about how many kids are leaving their faith. And I was like, I think I know why. Because they get off to college, we send them off as lambs to the slaughter. They don't know what they believe, why they believe it, because they've sat through the classes,
Hmm.
they've not really owned it. When you share your faith consistently as a teenager, you die 1,000 deaths to
Hmm.
yourself. You're
Yeah.
risking your social equity. You pick up your cross, die to your self-image, and risk losing your friends
Yeah.
when you do that. But it's again and again and again. By the time you graduate and go off to college, it's like, So what? I'm mocked by the philosophy 101 prof. I've endured that before, and I have answers to their questions because I've had 1,000 of those conversations already.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
100%.
mobilize them now, 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 now.
So good. And I think that's part of what made Charlie Kirk's legacy so powerful is he recognized the importance of reaching the kids when they're because you know how teens they kind of think they're invincible. I don't know. I have four boys and I swear just keeping them alive is one of the staples of my life, like just keeping these teenagers from dying. And but it's because they think they're invincible and that is advantageous. Like that is a charisma and a boldness that adults kind of numb out to as they get older. You know, we become more accustomed to the limitations of life and we make excuses for ourselves and all that kind of stuff. But when they're young, their zeal is so powerful and worth grabbing a hold of.
But their zeal is powerful and their brains aren't fully developed. That's why, teen boys, when they drive, the
Yeah.
insurance is way more expensive. And, but you know what? There's an opportunity there.
Yeah,
Like
there is.
David, a teenage boy, he had seven older brothers. He wasn't old enough to fight. He had to be at least 20 to fight. And it looked like he had three of his next older brothers were old enough to fight. So he's probably 13, 14 years old.
Mhm.
He goes out to face the biggest giant that none of the adult Israeli soldiers will face.
Yeah.
Well, why? Because he had great faith in God, and probably because his brain wasn't fully developed. I'm like, whatever,
I mean, let's use it, you know? Okay, so
let's
tell me,
go.
because you've been doing this for a while. Side note, you don't look old enough to have been an adult founding a church in 89. I was born in 83. And so I'm like, how?
Oh,
Yeah,
I just turned 60, so
that's crazy. Well, I'm
yeah.
glad you're still in the game, man. Okay, so tell me, then you've seen a few generations of teenagers come through. At least, generations are not a full 20 years, right? There's more like 10 years or whatever. So what are you seeing different now? I've heard, in fact, I had the VP of Thomas Nelson Bible Publishers on the show, and he was talking about how Bible sales are up like 500% just in the last 2 years. And then we see all these, especially since Charlie Kirk, but even before Charlie Kirk, I think really since 2020, that was kind of a tipping point for a lot of the emboldening the younger generation. So, what are you seeing different now that is different and distinguishable than back in the 80s?
Well, I really do think, COVID, brought a lot of anxiety to teenagers. I think they came out of COVID asking questions that sometimes, like you ask right before you die.
Yeah,
Like,
true.
because they're facing death, and they're getting all these news reports that people are dying all over the world, and they're thinking about their own mortality, and they're scared. Teens tend to be anxious anyway. Everything's accelerated through social media. I think they just came out ready for the gospel. I need hope. I need a message. I need something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Christ, when you really understand that the God of this universe,
Hmm.
even though we screwed everything up in the Garden of Eden, that he sent his own son to die in our place for our sin. That's how much, when a student feels, man, I'm loved. And when I preach to teens, I go, you may not feel loved. You may not think anybody sees you. The God of this universe not only
Hmm.
sees you, he
Yeah.
sent his son to live the perfect life you could never live, to die in your place, to
Mm.
rise from the dead, to give you resurrection power, to give you eternal life in heaven someday and quality of life today. You can find your identity, belonging, and purpose in the gospel. Identity as a child of God, belonging with the people of God, purpose with the mission of God.
Mhm.
There's a book out called Three Big Questions by Dr. Kara Powell that every teen asks. It's who am I?
Mhm.
Why am I here? Where do I fit? Well, identity, purpose, belonging. All of
Yeah.
that is answered in the gospel of Christ.
Mm.
And if we just focus on the identity and the belonging and we miss the purpose, we miss one of those big teens are looking for causes today.
Yeah, they are.
And the ultimate cause is the cause of Christ. It's not political,
Mhm.
right? It's not moral, it's transformational. Like
Yeah.
it's Christ and Him crucified. That's our mission to make and multiply disciples of all nations.
Yeah.
When students get that, then they get pumped.
It's so true. Now, you were telling me earlier, you mentioned very briefly about how, teenagers are using lots of different approaches, or they have lots of opportunity to bring the gospel to their generation with social media and different things. And I heard like Sean Bowles and Sean's been on the show before, we're friends, and he's talked about how people are in there's this guy, I think it's Roblox, where there's churches in Roblox, like I want to say it's Roblox, could be a different game, but it's a video game where they literally, it's a teenager started a church, like essentially a youth group, and he has like 17,000 members in Roblox, and they worship and he shares the gospel, and there's more and more of this happening. So what are some of the unique ways that you see teenagers bringing the gospel to their peers?
Well, I think using social media. One 15-year-old who posts a viral gospel video could reach more than Billy Graham could in 15 sold out stadium events.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, a student that puts their 60, one of the things we do at Dare to Share in our events is we have students post their 60-second story.
I like that.
Like, here's how I came to Christ. Well, I mean, for a teenager to do that,
Mhm.
that's like, used to hear back in the 80s, a coming out party or whatever for the LGBTQ.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this is a different kind of coming out party. Coming out party for an evangelical Christian that says, I'm a believer
Uh-huh.
and I'm not ashamed of the
Yeah.
gospel of Christ. And so using social media, we're seeing students still like it's interesting. Uh, we do a day of global youth evangelism every November, and students are mobilized with and for the gospel. And it's powerful to see
Mhm.
students still kind of engaging in that old school on the street, talking to people. We had 110 countries participate. Number one attendee was Nigeria.
Wow.
Number two was Venezuela.
Huh.
And number three was the US out of
Wow.
110 countries. So I believe something's afoot. I think Christian teens are tired of nominal Christianity. And I
Mm.
think this whole Charlie Kirk thing just kind of expedited that, he was bold. We need to be bold. And I think what our job as parents is to be good coaches, because sometimes kids will be obnoxious when they're bold. So you'd say, like a coach, come over here. Okay, now I appreciate the excitement, but you need to actually love them and listen to them. Okay,
Yeah.
go back in there. So that's what we can do to help them do that, and that's what we do at Dare to Share.
Yeah.
We train and equip leaders, parents,
Uh-huh.
pastors, how to engage and mobilize our students in a loving way.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, so based on your research, Dare to Share has conducted research into youth ministry and evangelism. So, what are the things that you guys found there that is important for youth ministry or even parents?
Well, here's the big typical youth group is not getting it done,
Mm,
but a gospel advancing ministry approach that mobilizes teenagers for the gospel, it's night and day. So, typical youth group, a gospel advancing one, right? Gospel advancing based on the research, 3 times overall growth, 3 times more teenagers discipling other teenagers,
mm,
40% more likelihood of a conversion, 50% more likelihood of that teen that hears Christ from a friend being plugged into the youth group,
mm.
10 times more gospel conversations per student. In the average youth group, the average teen has 5 gospel conversations per year. In a gospel advancing one, 50.
Oh, wow.
So one per week.
Wow.
And so when you mobilize teens, they rise up. And
Mm,
in the process, they own their faith. I think it's a flawed discipleship model. I'll say this. I think parents need to hear this as well as youth leaders. We have a philosophy in the West that it's kind of a pitcher of milk and a sponge. That if we pour the milk of God's word into their soul, then they'll be transformed by it. And that's only half true.
mm,
Because what happens when you pour the milk into a sponge, if you just leave it there, it spoils.
mm-hmm,
But when they wring it out to their friends, they come back thirsty for more.
mm.
So, yes, pour the milk of God's word, but equip them to reach out to their peers with the hope of Christ.
So
That
good.
makes them, thirsty for more of God's word, makes them utterly dependent on the Spirit of God.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember here in Denver, we had about 9,000 teenagers at our event, and we trained them, equipped them. Then I said, right before they went out to hit the streets, I said, everybody take out your phone. We're going to do our first outreach here.
Mm-hmm.
That person you've been praying for, you're about to call and engage them in a gospel conversation right here in the auditorium.
Wow.
And you could feel like, oh, is he serious?
Yeah.
I said, so we're going to pray and ask the Spirit of God to control us, to fill us, and to use us. And I guarantee you that was the first time a lot of those kids really prayed. You know why? They were scared to death.
Yeah.
And it made them, we watched as kids would just be crying, talking to their friends about how much Jesus loved them.
Mhm.
And every year after, we have kids that would come that were led to Christ on the phone at last year's event.
Wow.
So you want your kids to become spirit dependent and master the word, get them on
Yeah.
mission for the gospel.
So good. And I imagine, tell me what you found statistically. I know that for a lot of years, I don't know how these numbers have changed, but for a lot of years, they said 80% of teenagers, when they go to college, fall away from their faith or walk away from their faith. I think a lot of that is because of a lack of way for them to connect and plug in once they're on the college campus and they're not there with mom and dad babysitting them to go to church. But we were college pastors and we planted a college ministry that became a Chi Alpha at our university. It's still going. We did it for 12 years and it's still going. And it's 7 years later, so 20 years now. And and we had so many teenagers that when they came into college, they were like, I didn't even know the Lord in high school, but I found the Lord here in college. And
Yeah.
so it was a goal of ours to change that 80% number by providing an opportunity for discipleship for these college students. But I would imagine if they get connected and dare to share as a high schooler or even a junior higher, that it changes that statistic drastically for college.
Yeah, and we haven't done research on that, but I would bet my house if I was a betting man on that because uh, you can send if your students are actively sharing their faith, right? Um, you send them off to college as missionaries to the mission field.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not, you send them off as lambs to the slaughter because they've already owned their faith. Look at what Mormons do. Like, take a look at
Yeah.
at the age of 12, Mormons are commissioned as priests into the Mormon church. In high school, they do a thing called seminary every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 6:30 a.m. or something like that. Every day through the school year, Monday through Friday, they're going to seminary. And then at 18, when they graduate, they get a name tag, a bike pump, and a map to our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And they take the 2 year mission, and most of them know what they believe, why they believe it. It's,
Yeah.
crazy talk, but they believe it. They own it you they've shared
Mm-hmm.
it. And so I actually think the Mormon religion
Mm-hmm.
is a case study on what
Yeah.
happens when young people actively share their faith, that they long-term own their faith. And well, we are the true church of Jesus Christ, of everyday saints,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a better message, and we have
Yeah.
a higher calling,
Yeah.
and we're just sitting on it. We're just playing games and having short talks in youth group. I'm like, these kids are ready to be mobilized.
Yeah. Now, I know that you work a lot with youth pastors. What about parents? Because a lot of my listeners, and I'm already thinking, I'm like, oh, I know some youth pastors I'm going to send this episode to.
Yeah.
But in fact, any of you listening, send this to your youth pastor. But what would you say to parents who are like, you know what? I would love to wait on my youth pastor to do something, but if they don't take this up or they're just passed by on it, what can parents do to take advantage of the resources that you're offering?
Number one, parents, you are the youth pastors.
Come on.
Deuteronomy 6. I'm a big believer in youth ministry.
Yeah.
I have two adult children that, by God's grace, are serving the Lord today. And it wasn't just because they had great youth leaders. It's
Mm,
because mom and dad sought, some failed a lot, but we sought to model this out. We equipped them to share their faith. They've gone to Dare to Share and done all that stuff, but they saw us sharing the gospel with the servers at the restaurant or the baristas or our neighbors. It was part of our family conversation all the time. And it
mm,
became part of the way that we lived. And so
yeah.
I would take responsibility. You can do the Day of Global Youth Evangelism. If you go to daretosshare.org, it's number two,
Hmm.
dare2share.org, look under events. You can do the Day of Global Youth Evangelism with your teenagers and their friends. Just do it in your living room. You just got to, be willing to go out when you get them
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and do something to advance the gospel out loud with words in a loving, kind way. And we
Yeah.
we really, that kind of freaks people out. But I tell you, we one of the things we really try to do is because I think a lot of people think, well, I got to be as articulate as Charlie Kirk. Well, who's as articulate as Charlie Kirk?
Like nobody.
We have to be ourselves, filled with the Holy Spirit, and we need to learn how to have a gospel conversation.
Hmm.
And that's what we do. We train teenagers not to make a presentation, but to have a conversation. We
Yeah.
literally will do role playing as part of that. So you will learn how it really demystifies evangelism, makes it part of the way that we live and breathe and talk.
Yeah, yeah. This happened to me just the other day. I was in Dallas. Don't laugh at me. Just don't laugh at me, guys. I was in Dallas and I was in Flower Child restaurant. And I go and I sit down and wait for my meal to be brought to me. And there's a guy there by himself, sits down, same time as me. He was in line right before me. And as soon as I sit down, I was like the next table over. I was in his vicinity. I got hit with this overwhelming sense of sad loneliness.
Hmm.
And I was like, ooh, that came out of nowhere. And so I was like, I wonder if that's a word of knowledge for this guy. So I'm sitting there and then I get my meal. And of course, I'm trying to muster the courage. But I think, and this is the reason I'm bringing this up, is because I think this is where a lot of people get stuck is how do you bridge the gap? And I'll finish the story, but how do you bridge the gap from I don't know you to basically here's the gospel. You know what I mean? Like it's that deep level of like it's very vulnerable to go into the gospel because it's their deep-seated rooted heart issues and belief. So anyway, so I I don't go over and I don't go talk to him. I get my meal, I get
Yeah.
up and I leave the restaurant. But as soon as I walk out the doors, I get hit with this sense of the Lord being like, that's my son and he is so sad. Like, don't walk away from him. And I literally wanted to cry. And so I go and I put my meal in my car and I come back. I was like, okay, I could go to the bathroom in there and that'll give me a reason to walk back into the restaurant. So I go back in, I go to the restaurant and I'm like, I'm in front of the mirror and I'm like hyping myself up. I'm like, Jen, you got this. You can do this. Hi guys, I'm a senior pastor and I struggle with this. Evangelism is like my bottom gift, you know. But if I saw someone crying, I'd go over, put my arm around them, pray with them easy, you know. So some people, this isn't your top gift. Some evangelists, it's like breathing for them to go start those conversations. But for some of us, it's just not as natural, right? And so I go and I walk past him again and I leave the restaurant a second time. And then as soon as I get out, I'm hit with that overwhelming sadness, loneliness again. And I'm like, I cannot walk away from this man. What if he is just desperate right now? So I go back to the table and I said, Sir, can I ask you a question? And this is going to sound a little awkward, maybe. And I said, also, I'm not flirting with you. I just want to put that out there. And I said, I couldn't help but every time I walked past you, I got hit with this sense of sad loneliness. I said, are you dealing with loneliness right now? And he looked at me and he was like, I mean, I don't think so. And I was like, okay, what do I do now? You know, and I was like, okay. And he was like, I mean, I eat by myself a lot. And I was like, no, it's not because you're eating by yourself. I like to eat by myself. I see people do that all the time. I said, but I just, we never know where people are at. And I was just going to see if I could pray for you if that's something you're dealing with. And he was like, well, I mean, thank you. Thank you for praying for me, but I think I'm okay. And so, A, hi, how awkward. B, it could have still been true, and he was too embarrassed to say yes because that moment was so abrupt. So, help a sister out and help the people who are listening who are like, I relate to the awkwardness of that kind of situation.
If Greece has been on your bucket list, then you need to sit up and listen because here's how you can make it happen. Come with me and 11 other podcast listeners to Greece for the adventure of a lifetime. Picture cobblestone streets in Athens, the Acropolis rising against the sunset sky, walking the ancient roads of Corinth where Paul planted the Church of Corinth. We're going to hike a castle and capture so many stunning Santorini photos that you will treasure forever. This trip will be equal parts adventure and downtime. We're going to explore together and go on scheduled tours, but we're also going to leave space to rest, shop, sip lattes, and do your own thing. And what makes it so unique is we're also going to carve out time for prayer, prophetic ministry, and real refreshing encounters with the Lord. You're going to come home so refreshed, body, soul, and spirit. Now, details are still being finalized, but spots are very limited. I'm only taking 12, and one, possibly two, are already gone. So if you're interested in coming, the most important very first step is filling out the application so I know you want on the list. Step 2 is once you're approved, you can secure your spot with a deposit. In the application, you'll even find a link to some photos from my last trip so you can get a little sneak peek. So don't wait. All the details are coming, but your spot won't wait. So click the link in the show notes and fill out your application today. Can't wait to go to Greece with you.
Well, number one, let me tell you, way to go. Because you obeyed the Spirit's promptings.
Yeah.
And I believe a lot of times we actually have seared consciences. We walk right by people When
Yeah.
Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. The
Yeah.
words in the Greek is splagnizomai. It's a deep pain in your guts.
That's how I felt.
And that's how we need to feel about everyone who doesn't know
Mm-hmm.
Christ, right?
Mm.
Um, Two, we have a saying at Dare to Share, awkward is awesome.
Well, that's
Because
great.
in the crucible of awkward where change happens,
Yeah.
Jesus was awkward, you know, talking to the woman at the well, go get your husband. I don't have a husband. You've had five husbands, and the dude you're with now is not your husband. That's
Yeah.
awkward. It's awkward.
Yeah.
That's more awkward than are you sad and lonely?
Yeah, right.
You know?
That's true.
Um, and three is we use three words to help navigate a conversation. Ask, admire, admit. So ask questions just like you did,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, and then turn it spiritual. Like, is there any way I can pray for you? Like you did,
Uh-huh.
right? Um, and then that often ends up into do you go to church anywhere?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't really. Oh, okay. Is there a reason? Well, yeah, I got burned as a child. You just get into a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and you find out whether. Well, I'm a Muslim. One of the things I appreciate about Muslims is you pray 5 times a day. That's or I believe in the spiritual world, but I don't know who God is. Well, it's great that you believe the spiritual world, right? I do
Mm-hmm.
too. And then you admit, you tell your story, right?
Mm.
And then you share the gospel. So
Gotcha.
ask, admire, admit. What it does, my wife, I'm an evangelist. My wife is not, right? She is kind of shy. She's a teacher. But she loves people so well. And ask, admire, admit slows me down because I just want to start with it's hot in hell. It's hot in hell. It's hot in here. It's hot in hell too. Let me tell you about it. Um, but it speeds my wife up because she would perpetually just build bridges if you let her, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So ask, admire, admit is a simple, natural place. But when you bring up spiritual things, it's awkward.
Mm-hmm.
But here's your test. Awkward is
Awesome.
awesome because that's where change happens.
That's so
You got to
good.
lean into the awkward, own it.
Own it. Hey,
Yeah,
that's
you
really
did it.
good. I love that.
Yep.
I love that. And you know what? Let me encourage those of you who are listening to, like, I feel like every spiritual gift comes with its uncomfortableness. I was talking to a friend last week who she was getting prophetic insights in prayer and for people, words of knowledge. And she was like, it was so scary. I didn't know if I was really hearing the Lord. And she goes, when does the scary go away? And I was like, yeah, it never really goes away. I was like, I've been prophesying over people for years. And I was like, yeah, it never really goes away. You're always a little nervous. And so I heard one major prophetess, she said, that's my indicator that I'm hearing from the Lord is if it's really nerve-wracking. And so maybe that awkwardness is the indicator that that's the bridge you need to cross.
And I would encourage, I have a 5-minute crash course on evangelism
Uh-huh.
on YouTube. If you just look up Greg Stier, 5-minute crash course, and it just simply lays out how do you naturally share the gospel in any
So good.
conversation with anyone. And that's what
So
we
good.
do. That's what we do at Dare to Share. We've been doing this for a
Yeah.
long time, and not just with teenagers, with adults. I pastored a church. We trained our church members how to share the gospel. And again, my job as an evangelist is not to do all the evangelism. It's to equip God's people for works of service. So
Exactly. That's so good. Well, I'll go find that YouTube video and I will drop it in the show notes. So if people want to watch that, they can. Okay. So in closing, how can someone, let's say parents want to connect with you, they can watch that 5-minute crash course, they can go to your website.
yeah.
How about youth pastors? If we want to get this to youth pastors, how can we help them do that?
Well, I would say daretashare.org, the number 2, daretashare.org. We have 75 free curriculums on our website. Again, Day of Global Youth Evangelism. We do a full week summer training here in Denver for student leaders. We got all sorts of tools and resources. So just go to dare to share, the number 2, daretashare.org. And if you want to follow me, probably the best way is just on Instagram. So
I'll
yeah.
put all those in the notes. I'll put all that in the show notes so you guys can pick which one you want to do. And again, those of you who are listening, if you're involved in a church, which I hope you are, send this episode to your youth pastor, because they just might not realize, maybe it's been on their heart to try to figure out how to put tools in their students' hands, and they just don't know that this is an option. So send this episode to your youth pastor, to your senior pastor, to your children's pastor, because even the younger kids can benefit from this kind of training. The younger that we can teach them this, the better. And so, Greg, thank you for what you're doing. I so much appreciate it. As someone where evangelism is not my top gift, I feel like I need someone to hold my hand to get there and do that. So
we got you. We got you.
I appreciate that. Well, you guys, thanks so much for listening. All of his valuable information I'm going to put down in the show notes. So make sure go and click. I'm going to encourage you, if you listen to this and you're like, I want to do something, the desire to do something will pass within the hour. Do something now. Make a decision. If you as a parent feel like, I would like to do this for my kids, do this for your kids. You have no idea how putting these right tools in their hands will not just change the lives around them, but change them. And so take action right away. Go get connected. And your big event, it's November 8th, you said?
November 8th. And you can do it whatever day you want. It's all pre-filmed. But around the world, there'll be youth groups doing this, Day of Global Youth Evangelism, and you get all that through daretashare.org.
Incredible. Okay. Thank you so much, Greg. It was so good to have you. Thanks, you guys, for listening. Thanks for sending this to someone that you love, especially your pastor or youth pastor. Again, make sure you're subscribed to Java with Jen so you don't miss any of our upcoming amazing guests. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's show. Listen, let's stay connected. Come follow me on Instagram at Java with Jen, where you can follow the latest and say hey. It's a really great way to stay in touch. Many of you have also asked how you can support the show. You can make donations through the Anchor app or on Patreon, or of course by sharing, rating, and reviewing on social media and iTunes as well. Your heartfelt feedback always reminds me why I do this. Also, don't miss our merch store, where you can get super cool Java with Jen swag and coffee. Find it at javawithjenmerch.com. Until next time, remember, hearing God's voice is simple, and He wants to be a part of your everyday life. See you next week.